Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 32 of the On-Air Advocate. Where at the On-Air Advocate, we look to provide education, support, and empowerment for all of those with different abilities, mental and medical illnesses, and their caregivers. For those of you who do not know me, my name is Tammy Flynn, and I am the host and producer of the On-Air Advocate, and I am super excited that you are tuning in to listen to this broadcast, whether that be on our YouTube channel or that might be on our podcast platform as well. Now, as most of you know, we usually take a section of each month and have a series of different, from chronic illnesses to different supports and education that we can provide for the community. And so this series that we have for the next 3 weeks is on pain management as well as chronic pain in children and adults. And so I'm super excited to welcome back Robin Richards to this week. She is an educator, a life coach, a blogger, and the founder of Mamasmomentum, which is providing inspiration, education, and support through teaching and learning and vibrant living. And so she has a lot of tools and tricks in her box to share with us tonight on relaxation and rejuvenation and bringing that stress down and helping with pain and all that good stuff. So welcome, Robin.
Thank you, Tammy. I'm just so glad to be back and especially to be sharing more strategies and tools. I'm really excited to have everyone be able to actually engage in something. So it's not just us talking about what some of these practices are, but so people themselves, I hope, are tuning in and going to be able to, at the end of this, find some relief and just open their mind a little bit to some practices that, science is now showing we really are able to combine our mind and our attention to help heal our body and help manage not just stress, but also pain. So I'm very excited to have this conversation with you.
Right. And I know that we were also chatting, and tonight you're going to share some different things in the holistic realm as well through like Eastern and Western medicine and modalities that way.
Well, for me, what's very interesting is that I am a person who has always been founded in science. And so when I've encountered different holistic things like acupuncture or Reiki or yoga, meditation, things like that, I've done the investigation of what is the science now that we have brain research and technology to be able to measure what's happening in our bodies and in our brains when we're engaging in practices that have been around for thousands of years. So it's not really going back and forth between them. It's just throughout my own experience of managing pain myself and managing post-traumatic stress disorder and thriving as a vibrant person, I have found holistic practices. I continue to learn and explore. And then what I really love doing is finding out what's the neuroscience behind it. What's the research that's validating, because we live in a world where people want data. They want to know, they want to know what is really happening if we have science and all those things to show. And so that's what I'm really excited about, because it's not just for me knowing that I've done research and seen studies on what's happening in our brains as we're doing different practices, but I know for myself what I experience. And that's what's most exciting to me, is when I can take the holistic and the science, but then really what it's all about, Tammy, is what is our real experience with a practice? What results does it give to us? Because there is a placebo effect, right? That's why when they test new medications, we always have that placebo effect. And that's a powerful thing. If you think about the reason we have to test to see if it's the placebo effect working, it's because our minds just believing that we're taking something that's healing us starts to heal us. And so that's what's really exciting to me about all of this. And so as we talk about pain management, I'm not going to mention any type of, there's things with holistic practices around things you can ingest. Like people do a lot with, and these are really great things to explore. It's not my wheelhouse, but around aromatherapy. And I know that, you can create your own different concoctions and things that help to have more of a natural effect of relieving pain and stress and inflammation. But for me, everything that I want to talk to you about today is really just about practices of your mind and of awareness. So
perfect.
Yeah.
Perfect. Well, take us in. I'm ready to relax. For those
Well,
viewers that weren't on our last strategy of trying to get this together, it took a little bit. Our
yeah.
computer was not working the best. So I am ready to get some of that relaxation right along with probably the viewers that were trying to listen in.
Well, a little bit of my backstory, Tammy, is that I do like to share my age. I'm 35 years old, but I feel like I'm living in the body of a 70-year-old. And the reason I say that is because there is no one else other than people in their 60s and beyond that I can have conversations around what my hands feel like and what my hip feels like. And it's really just like the aging arthritis. And it's an onset for me of, I've done a lot of reading. I've talked to doctors. They've said onset of rheumatoid arthritis, maybe possibly fibromyalgia, like all of these different things that are related to when you have chronic stress and fatigue and you end up, your body creates inflammation. So I wanted to focus today on something that I have done because I mentioned a lot of these holistic practices, people are intimidated by,
Right.
when we have a schema that thinks that you have to look a certain way in order to practice yoga, or that you have to do crazy chants and have smoke signals and things going around you in order to meditate, like that's just not, that's available to you, but that's not necessarily an entry point that's comfortable for people. So I wanted to do something that was really comfortable. So today we're going to start with knowing that I suffer from chronic pain in my hands. And so we're going to be focusing on our hands because especially as we continue to emerge with technology, more and more people are using their hands and their fine motor skills and getting cramps and everything else. So regardless of the area where we're focusing our attention, it's about bringing our energy flowing to that area by bringing our attention there. So what I'm going to have you start to do, just to go ahead and engage your brain and yourself, is I want you to start by rubbing your hands together. And whenever we bring our attention just to the sensation of our palms rubbing back and forth, we're actually doing something with our brain. We're making our brain work both sides of the brain. And so it's bringing us more into the present moment when we're activating both sides of our body. And that's why if you've heard of something called tapping, there's tapping practices. That's an ancient practice that now merges with science as well. But it's about activating both sides of your brain so that you can actually release trauma and things. But if you start just by gently rubbing your hands together and noticing, and then what I'd like you to do is just go ahead and relax your hands and place them down on your lap or the table, whatever is comfortable for you. You can gently close your eyes if you wish. And I want you to bring your attention and your awareness to your left pinky finger. And I want you to really feel that left pinky finger and imagine a white light is glowing in that finger. Right at the tip of the finger, you have a white light glowing, and that white light is traveling right down your finger to the base of that knuckle. And as it hits that knuckle, it travels over to your ring finger, and it's glowing in that knuckle as it travels up all the way to the tip of your ring finger. And now it's coming back down, and it's going down your ring finger into that knuckle, into the knuckle to your middle finger. Feel it glowing white. It's warm, and it goes right up to the top, spreading light, that white light to the tip of your middle finger. And we go back down to the knuckle, and then we go over to your index finger, and you feel that light glowing, and you bring it all the way up to the tip, and then it comes back down. And now we go to the best, most wonderful, evolved part of our hand, our thumb, and your thumb. Feel it glowing. Feel the heat of your thumb. Maybe you can feel some air on your thumb. And then I want you to imagine the light going to your entire palm of your hand, and feel that left palm of your hand as it's glowing. And that glowing, that light is going to spread all the way to the fingertips, and your whole left hand is warm and it's glowing. And in your next breath, just let the glowing die down and feel your hand. Now, Tammy, if I ask you, how does your left hand feel right now in comparison to your right hand? Do you notice anything?
It feels very light.
It feels light.
It feels light. It doesn't feel heavy, and it takes a lot of, I also noticed that when I was closing my eyes doing it, so much of my focus came off of all the other things in my brain, like our technology not working about 20 minutes ago. And it brought me to thinking about that light and spreading through my hand, so it really, that energy, going to my hand versus thinking about the other things which I can see how even something as simple as that, when we talk about pain management and chronic pain, how, you know, when you can get your mind to kind of drift away from other things that are going on, chaos, pain, feelings, that sort of thing, you know, how that can kind of take you away, at least for a little while, in more of a natural way.
Well, and what you're speaking about are, you know, pain, whether we're feeling it physically, we also are feeling it emotionally and mentally in what you just
Mhm.
said, in the overwhelmment that is more present in our world with technology and things being more quick and speedy, and our attention all over the place. And I love that you said, you know, when I closed my eyes, it really helped to, it calms that noise part, right? Like it stills the noise. And so I always, when I engage in a meditation, I invite people, because it can be very intimidating to close your eyes, right? And when I first started meditating, that wasn't for me. I didn't want, I'm also, you know, part of my story, I suffer from post-traumatic stress disorder. So if I'm in an environment where I'm not familiar and I have my eyes closed, that just doesn't work for me at all, right? But
Right,
what
right.
I learned is, if people listening, you know, when you're not feeling comfortable with closing your eyes, there's also something called a drishti. And that is the Sanskrit word, which means finding just a focal point. And it's basically like having your eyes closed, like when you
Mhm.
stare off into the distance and you're just looking at one point, but it's not necessarily in the distance. It could be just in your room, wherever you're at, just finding the corner of an object. Even it could be something that you're holding on to, and just concentrating your vision only on that, because then it
Mhm.
calms out the noise of everything else. So whether it's
Right.
closing your eyes or focusing on a drishti, I love that
Mhm.
word too, doesn't
A
it? Just, it
drishti.
sounds like drifting, right? It's like
Right.
making you
Yes.
come back
Say that
together
10
and into
times.
it.
A
Yeah,
drift.
you're just drifting on, just imagine being on a surfboard, just drifting, right? You're
Mhm.
drifting, you're just
Right.
floating and noticing what's around you. But um, it's just, it's so powerful to do that, because your energy is going to flow
Mhm.
wherever your attention goes. So when
Right.
you're able to lessen the amount of distractions by closing your eyes or that drishti, you're already giving yourself more energy. So if you're a person who is suffering from especially chronic pain, so for me, my hands are just aching and it's more in the morning. And so when I can just calm the noise of the visual sensations down, and I can focus my breath, and I actually do an entire body scan. So I do that type of thing with my hand, but with my whole
Mhm.
body. And it helps me just bring attention and lightness, like you said, to your
Mhm.
whole body. The
Right.
next layer, though, is if you have pain in a place and you bring your attention to that pain,
Okay.
to really bring your attention to it, to not only feel it and hate it, right? Like, because when
Mhm.
we feel pain, we're like, what is this? Why
Right.
do I have this? What's going to fix it? What's going to, you know, why me? What's wrong that I'm
Mhm.
having this? And I mean, I have a relationship with my hands that's like anger, right? Because I'm like, this
Right.
isn't fair. And then I start
Mhm.
thinking about all the things in my life that aren't fair and all of this. Well, when I am doing this type of scan, and like I did with, you know, as I led you just on the left hand, and my hands hurt, I am purposefully sending light and warmth.
Mhm.
And I'm thinking, you know, with intentions of what would I be doing if my daughter, you know, skinned her knee, right? How do we take care of a
Mhm.
small child? And so setting that intention as you're just noticing with awareness, you're bringing energy to those areas that you're taking your attention to, and it
Right.
actually is helping you heal. So it's really, and if you can change your relationship with your pain, right? Because it's
Mhm.
not even you can have something physically hurt you, but
Mhm.
if you're engaging with it in a way that is beating yourself up because
Right.
it's putting you as the victim, right?
Mhm.
The role of victim doesn't serve anyone. And
Right.
so that's a choice. And I've been in that choice of poor me and why me, and I can't do this and I can't do that. And there are times when there's certain things I can't do, but I also know that as I've shifted my mindset and I've shifted my attention,
Mhm.
my energy has not only been more able to be conserved, but it's been able
Right.
to flourish, and in a very healing way, for not just my body, but also my mind.
Right. Right. That is so wonderful. I love it.
You sound calmer. I hope.
I am. I'm like, if I would have kept my eyes closed, I really think doing that with the light, I think that I could have fallen asleep. I really do. Because it's just very calming. And when you like you said, where your, where your focus goes, your energy flows. I mean, really,
Yeah.
that's the saying. So, just taking yourself away for a moment. Now, aside from doing some things like that, would you say that is there any other ones that you love?
I have to tell you this, Tammy, it just is so funny. So I've been a learner my entire life, and I'm going to take you back to when I was in 4th grade, because I had a teacher who every day made us do different exercises. And the truth is that movement, right? Like yoga is a great form of activity because it's a practice you can do for your entire life, and it doesn't provide a lot of impact on your joints, and it's really strengthening and stretching, and that's fantastic. Well, she had us do all of these stretching things and almost yoga for our hands. Like after recess, we would come in, and I think it's because she was like 60, so she
Okay.
had hands like mine and she wanted to just stretch them out. But I remember being in 4th grade, and I still do this. And when I was a teacher myself, I sometimes would engage kids in just fun little ways, but just so if it's chronic pain with your hands, when you get into pain, think about you stiffen up. Even when you're stressed, your body, for those people who can see what I'm doing here, where you hunch over instead of, there's research that shows you, there's a great TED Talk, Cuddy is the last name, Amy Cuddy, about doing the power poses. Have you heard about this? The TED Talk, Amy Cuddy, got to check her out. It's fantastic.
Okay.
But if you do a power pose, and so my favorite is Wonder Woman, you are changing the position of your body, and it actually changes how your body then is sending like dopamine and testosterone and all of these things. And so the same thing if we're moving our body, right? And purposefully, so not just bringing our attention, but getting back to Mrs. Lena in 4th grade. So she would have us hold our hands out, and we would just do like little workouts where you have your hands open would be 1, halfway closed would be 2, all the way into a fist would be 3, and then back open would be 4. And then we would just do it again. So open 1, half closed 2, fist 3, open 4. 1, 2, 3.
It's like 9:30 at night. We could do this.
but it's not, right? Like we're not getting a sweat on unless, it's been a little bit warm for spring and stuff today, but it's just a gentle, easy movement. This is about aging gracefully. This isn't about like exercising and being, again, this is mindset, right? Like what are ways that I can just love on my body when I'm experiencing pain? So is it that I'm just gently doing these exercises to open them and get some rhythm and be thinking about the fact I'm paying attention to myself, right? Is that helping me? And then the next layers of that, I would, for me, every morning, where my practice is right now is every morning I've committed to doing some form of yoga. And honestly, sometimes I roll out my mat and I just stand there in mountain pose and I'm like, okay, that's enough today. But again, it's mindset, whatever your entry point is. But for me, my hips are really, I carry a lot of pain, especially in my right hip. And so to have that stretch right away in the morning, it is like a instant relief, and it just feels good. And I would also really encourage anyone who is struggling with any type of pain or stress or fatigue to just be like a cat. Look at what cats do, right? They lay in the sun.
Really stretch.
Yeah, they stretch. They lay in the sun. They were, to really just like feel that heat and that warmth, but the heat, the warmth, that helps with pain. It helps with, heal it, like heating pads. I personally, if you can experience things like a hot tub or different saunas, depending on what your ailments are, but anything that loosens you up, because heat makes you flow better. That's what is happening with your ligaments and everything else. And so those gentle movements, like I said, with your hands, that's heat, that's flow that you're bringing to your hands. Even, I'm not sure if you could measure this, but there are certain things that we've been able to measure around energy with, our neurotransmitters, like where we're sending our brain, like where the energy is happening. And as you're sending your attention to different parts of your body, you're activating energy in different parts of your brain. So it's really about flow, right? It's so we don't get stuck in the pain, so that we experience it and just
Mm-hmm.
kind of work with it instead of resisting it.
Right. Right. That's so good. We all need to stretch like a cat. We're gonna
Yeah, lay in the sun. Yeah.
we're gonna have glowing fingers. It's gonna be awesome.
Yeah, stretch
Now,
those claws out.
I know. I'm gonna do that now every single morning. I really do need to start doing yoga though, because that does help the joints so much. And I've used many other things, as we've talked about before, my son having full spinal surgery. Some of his very easy tools that he's used is like we have one of those sound boxes that has about
Mm,
18 different sounds on it though, which is cool. It's one from, I think, like Sharper Image, and it
uh-huh.
has so many different sounds. And people sometimes are like, oh, they think it's hokey, and it doesn't. I'm telling you, we brought that to the hospital. And I mean, it does wonders to just take your mind away, the soothingness of the music, and the
Yeah.
different, sounds. Also something that we used a lot, kind of like the hand movement, but the jelly balls that the
Oh
stuff kind of
yeah.
pops out of. I have to
Yep.
put one of those up this week. I think those work so well. So he used to use that in bed in the hospital, and he would squeeze it and squeeze it, as his pain, was
Going to
fluctuating.
focus attention on something
Yeah,
else.
yeah. And
Yeah.
so I think that those work a little better than just like the plain stress ball, because I think that you feel like that
The
that
tactile.
outside, like
Yeah.
the tactile and the release of it like poking out, which makes you feel like maybe you're squeezing out some of that pain versus just those stiff ones. So
Well,
um
that's so interesting you even mentioned that, Tammy, because if you've ever, I was just reading about healers, right? Like
mhm,
healers that's something that's an ancient practice, but we can find healers in all different types of situations. But I was reading this article about some shamanic healers and how they use crystals and things to
mhm.
like basically take out, like if you have a trauma or an event or
Right, right.
whatever it is. And so you hold on to this and then the crystals help to remove this from you. And, when I think of it, I just am like, oh my gosh, like, am I watching a Disney movie? Like that just seems so
Right,
crazy, right? Like that's
right.
the reality. But the truth is that it's the placebo effect again, right? You're
Mhm.
going to you're going to create your own reality. And so when
Right.
you have something and you have somebody else who energetically is aligned with you and that you're believing, right? Like that you are getting this thing out, or you have something to concentrate. Like I said, your energy's flowing where your attention's going. So if it's that stress ball or if
Mhm.
it's a crystal or if it's something and you like really are believing that you are able to
Mhm.
channel your energy and it's going to relieve your pain, it's
Right,
going to.
right.
And
The
that's
mind
what,
is so powerful.
yes, because we are creating our own experiences.
Mhm.
And that's why there's, one of my biggest entry points to really upping my understanding around health and wellness. And also for me, wanting to work on being the healthiest person I can is becoming a mother myself and struggling with
Mhm.
infertility. And it was so interesting, I birthed my daughter in 2015. And so for people that haven't been to some of the birthing facilities nowadays, you go in and it's better than most hotels that I've been to,
Mhm.
depending on where you're at. But the
Yeah.
ones who are really trying to make it an experience that is not, that it really is comforting and that helps
Right.
support. And so it's about like things matter. The paint color matters.
Mhm.
If it's a soothing color, that really helps you. So
Mhm.
if you're in an environment and you are in fluorescent lights and it's just feeling sterile and bright, like figure out a way to bring in some fabrics, to bring in some flowers, like bring
Mhm.
in some nature. That helps, right? With healing energy,
Right.
with just you being able to feel more grounded. Other things from the birthing that were like huge ahas for me. They had aromatherapy sticks. Like you had your choice of citrus or lavender to be able to smell while you were laboring, because
Mhm.
scents help you. Just as I
Right.
mentioned before, I'm not really well versed in it myself, but that helps with the experience and creating that attention, right? Like you're focusing now on something
Right.
else. And
Mhm.
then, as you said, the sound, that was huge. Like there's sound systems now in those, and like, having like water noises and all of those
Right.
things
And
just,
birds and all of
yeah.
that. Yeah.
You know,
And
Tammy,
I never really knew the magnitude of it, you know, because I've always been like, okay, yeah, you know, and for those who know, you know, I am in the salon and spa world
yeah,
as well. And so you think, okay, the soothing music and the relaxation that brings it down. But when you think of a level like 100 pain, when you think of having 400 plus stitches and a full new
right,
spine put in, and you
right.
think of that magnitude of pain, and you think of a music box, and you're like, is this really going to help? And I'm telling you, and on top of it, it can be battery operated or plugged
Yeah.
in. So I was like, it was coming everywhere.
Everywhere.
It
Yeah.
was coming everywhere with us.
Aren't those the best tools? The ones that just go everywhere with you.
I know. And it has like, you could time it. You can time how long it's on. It's pretty awesome. But what it really showed me was there is substantial power in that, you know. I mean, I used to believe there was power in it, like, oh, it's just soothing, it's nice, but it really does have a lot more power than I think people even comprehend or understand unless they're in that situation. You know, kind of like that ball. I couldn't believe the ball was so used over a 3-week period of time that it was basically not usable and needed a new one. You know, but you
That
think
hurt.
about how many times it was squeezed, how many times it was being used as a distractor for the brain. And, you know, you
Right.
never really realize that until you're in the situation where you're utilizing some of those other outside tools that we hear about. Oh, yeah, that helps. But how much does it really help? And I think it's anytime we get that energy to flow back, you know, to something else, taking our brain away from
I
what
love
we're
that.
experiencing. Yeah. I
Well,
think
and I
that's
love
right.
that you said too, it's just about your entry point, right? And like, how do we learn best is when we experience it or when one of our loved ones experiences it, right? It's
Mm-hmm.
that relationship and that we've had an emotional relationship with seeing something work. And, you know, my honest truth, Tammy, is that um, I'm concerned about the level of exposure that we have as humans to things that are very toxic, that are causing increases in our pain levels, whether or not you already are experiencing them. And that's through, like we mentioned, technology, like not learning how to manage ourselves, right? And like the multiple distractions and that increased stress. But there is reality too. We have Wi-Fi signals and there's more things happening like around us. And so, you know, there's a lot of research happening, like people get, you know, you're in the salon business wanting to get salt lamps, right? To clear the air. And there's, I'm doing a lot of learning. I'm trying to transition to get my cell phone out of the bedroom. And so I'm trying to get back into alarm clocks. Like I'm back in the 90s. But you know, these things, because if for me, so my trauma has manifested into my body and I have been made more aware of it. And so with that, I'm going to seek out any way that I can to try to purify so that I can bring more energy and attention to just being healthy and healing.
Right.
And it's also, you know, the hard reality, especially for people who are suffering from chronic pain. I have several friends who have multiple sclerosis, and it's really, really, really hard because there's a piece of your mindset where it's just so unfair. It's so
Right.
unfair. And when is the end, and there is no end, right? Like
Right.
that's part of what, for me, like I'm not going to cure the pain that I have. I'm not going to cure the traumas or but I'm going to always work to get better and to find those moments of peace and expand those and shift my relationship with what's happening to me. Because if I can do that, then it really does, like if you stop beating yourself up about where you're at, and the fact that you're experiencing pain and you're just like, okay, this is the pain that I have right now and this is just where it is right now, that in and of itself can lessen it. So I know that that's a lot, but it's so personal to me. And I just know that there are so many people that are dealing with so many different levels of pain and stressors. And I just hope that there's one piece of an access point that you can give yourself, because your mind, it's $0, right? Like it's $0
Right.
to breathe. It's $0 to notice your hand. It's $0 to stretch. you don't have to pay somebody to do those things. You can, right? You definitely can. And if you want to see different results and stuff, but I just am all about empowerment, and I'm about people finding natural ways to help them live their best lives with whatever they're given, whether or not it's fair.
Wonderful. Well, that's awesome and fabulous. Now, is there anything else for our wrap up for tonight? Did we want to dive it all into, I know we already covered some of the holistic stuff, the Eastern, Western, the science behind that. Is there any kind of research or anything you wanted to throw out there, or do you think that we covered A through Z?
You know, the one thing that I want to throw out there, just getting really back to the neuroscience, is creating our own reality, and that deals with, you know, the pain that we experience. When you have a thought, it actually creates a pathway in your brain. So we have thoughts, right? But if we pay attention to that thought, it creates a pathway in your brain. It's called a synaptic connection. And when you continue to give that thought attention, it basically creates a groove. Imagine the Colorado River creating the Grand Canyon, right? It flows enough.
Right.
That way. So now imagine that you're paying attention to your pain, and you're saying how painful it is, how terrible it is, how you don't deserve this, wherever you're at, you know, with these thoughts, you're creating with your thoughts and your attention more pain. You're creating a cycle that's going to continue to create that pain, where if you can just take a step back, and like we did in, you know, the first time that you and I talked, just even having a bell or a chime, something to just bring your awareness, and then even taking the next step like we did with the little mini body scan on our hand, but just interrupting so that you're not creating really a reality that's making it worse for you.
Right. No, that's so positive. And if you haven't ever listened to that other episode or watched it on our YouTube channel, go back where we use the chime. And I had so many people
18.
after that segment. Yes. And it really, it brought you back to that centering point. And so I think that that's such a good point. And it was such a fabulous tool. And you kind of walked through kind of like you do with the light in that last segment. So I think between this one and that one, there would be some great combined things to put together to really help with some pain management, some other tools in your toolbox. And like I always say is that you need to try different things, especially when this is a lifelong thing or for a greater than a 6-month period of time. You really need to open your eyes and open your mind that it's okay to try some different stuff. And guess what? If it doesn't work for you, try something different.
There's nothing wrong with it not working for you.
Right.
And there's nothing wrong with the other people who it might be working for. That's the other. We are all a bazillion flavors of people, and there's a bazillion tools out there. So you got to try them in order to figure out what works. And honest truth, Tammy, what worked for me 2 years ago didn't work for me a year ago, might not work for me tomorrow, you know? And so you have to be flexible with yourself, because that's what's going to help us just all continue to deal with whatever we have and take that and then grow more vibrantly from there.
Wonderful. Well, thank you, Robin, so much for spending this evening with us. And for those that might be catching this right away after we're done, we are sorry about the technical difficulties. But Robin, it's always a pleasure to have you. Robin from Mama's Momentum. And I know I'm going to drop below this. I will drop all of your links right in there so anybody can get a hold of you. Is the best way to just hop on over to your website?
Yeah, hop on over to my website, because I'm blogging and just creating things. That's where you're going to be kept up to date most often. If you are in the Minneapolis area, I'm doing a combined self-development workshop with a happy hour on June 1st. So please reach out to Mama's Momentum, because I'd love to get you in that. It's going to be fabulous, because that's what it's all about, right? Holistic and science, a cocktail with, you know, some self-care. Like, let's be eclectic with it all.
And there's a spot to fill in, like to register for your updates and all that right on your website, correct?
You
All
got it.
right. Well, perfect. Thank you again, Robin, and thank you all again for tuning in to the On Air Advocate. As always, you can check out all of our social media applications and podcasts and YouTube tutorials and all of that over at onairadvocate.com. And just remember, on our Facebook page, we are launching our private On Air Advocate community that we want you all to be involved in this June. So make sure that you get on over there and request to be a part of that. So with that, have a fabulous rest of your evening, Robin, and thank you so, so much.
Thank you. Be well, Tammy.
You as well.